Good morning, Facebook land. Kat here with a live stream of the Mom's Adventure Paradox podcast. You've been following along. You know, we've been talking a lot about how to talk to your brain, especially negative self-talk, and how humor can help you shift what you might be thinking or doing or seeing. Today, I have a very special guest who is going to talk to us about humor. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can already see what I'm talking about. But we'll begin with introducing this guest as Bryan Lee. Bryan Lee, how are you? Where in the world are you? And what's Monday like for you today?
Well, good afternoon, or I guess good morning. I'm from Arizona. I'm in Arizona right now. Originally from Ohio. I moved to Arizona back in 2005. Um, my Monday morning is well, as you can see, it's getting ready. We'll just keep it at that for a moment. But yeah, just kind of getting ready, getting my mind ready for the day, and figuring out what kind of a blessing I can be today. So that's kind of how my mornings usually start off. Every morning is a little different, but the main gist is, how can I bless somebody today? And that's the first thing that I think of when I wake up and get up out of bed.
Oh, I love that. How can you bless somebody today? And what's your practice? It sounds like you sort of prepare your mind, and we'll talk a little bit about what we're seeing and how you prepare that in a bit. But how do you prepare yourself for the day, preparing your mind especially?
A lot of it is just quiet time, just kind of in reflection first and kind of thinking about. I kind of plot out the day. I know where I'm usually going to be heading for the day. So if it's I'm heading to a nursing home to do activities or whatever it happens to be, or if I'm heading to the mall, or if I'm heading to the bank, I still kind of mentally prepare myself because I mean there are going to be things I see along the way, whether it's I encounter a homeless person on the way, or I encounter, just a bunch of different things, before these are things I would not have really given a second thought to. I would not have really thought about who I might encounter. Um, and so now I very much kind of focus on, okay, if I encounter this type of person today, this is what I should be doing. And this is what I hope that that I will do in that given situation. So, and then of course, there's always things that you're not prepared for. So, I've just learned over the years. I've had a somewhat tumultuous life here and there. So I've very much angst ridden when I was younger. So now it's all about peace and calm and figuring out, okay, how do I navigate the chaotic world that we're living in, but still within my little peaceful bubble, and how do I kind of navigate all of that? So it's just kind of um, going along my daily routine, as quiet and calm as possible.
That's beautiful. And I'm going to encourage people to watch this on YouTube, and we'll get to that in a minute. But the idea about how you see the world and prepare yourself to see and look for things, but also putting yourself in a place where you are really seen. I don't know if you're familiar with the book that's coming through right now. It's called The Noticer. I don't remember who wrote that book, but he really notices things. And it comes from a space of maybe not being noticed, not being known, not being seen. Would you touch on maybe some of the tumultuous things in your life or challenges that maybe have helped you shift your perspective and seen the importance of being seen and really seeing others?
Well, yeah, back when I was younger, I was bullied as a kid. So I was bullied at school. My parents divorced when I was very young. And so I went to live with my mom and an abusive alcoholic stepfather.
Oof.
So not only was I getting bullied at school, then when I came home, I was still kind of in that mindset of, okay, I still have to navigate an abusive alcoholic who I have to either get away from, or I have to pre-plan my afternoon or my day to kind of figure out how I'm not going to interact with him as much as possible. Um, and so the ironic thing is, back then it became I didn't want to be noticed. So I did everything that I could to, blend in and to not stand out and, you know, get through the day as quietly as possible. And now today, it's kind of completely flipped around where now I'm, seeing a lot of places that I go. Um, and like I said, well, this will make more sense later. Um, but but actually that was even a shift. That really was a shift, because whenever I moved from the type of life that I had when I was younger to the type of life that I have now, that was also a culture shock, because now everybody saw me everywhere I went, and I'm like, whoa, 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 this is a little too much.
Mm,
It was in a good way. It wasn't a bad thing. But it was like, okay, now I go from nobody noticing me when I walk into a room, and now everybody's noticing me when I walk into a room. And then it's kind of like, in certain ways, you're still not getting the peace, because now people are bombarding you for different reasons. And you're like, wait a minute, I just want to eat dinner while I look like this.
right.
You know, and so yeah, I mean, it's a interesting. Being visible and not being visible are two very different things, and I really focus on that now. Like now, when I walk into a room, and I'm doing an event, the first person I'm going to notice is the person who doesn't want to be noticed, because I kind of scan the room and I look, and I'll see like the child in the corner who is not participating in the activity that we're doing. And so that's where my mind and my heart go right away, is like, okay, we got to go to that corner, and I've got to figure out a way to involve this particular child, even if it's just to say hello, or to hand them a toy, or to interact with them in some way. Because
Mm,
you're gonna get the ones who are all bubbly and excited, and they're going to bombard you right when you walk in the room. But then I'm looking for the ones who are keeping to themselves. And it's the same in a nursing home. I'll go to nursing homes, and I go into the rooms where, people are um, isolated. And it's like, if there are, you have the little cliques that get together, and they're all excited to be with each other. And then you have the people who never come out of their room. So that becomes a mission of mine now, because I have been on the other end of
yeah.
wanting to hide and wanting to be hidden. And probably, I mean, I suppose in some weird way, I wanted to make sure that I really would like to have been noticed, but not in the way that I was getting noticed back then.
Mm,
Being knocked into the lockers, and being kicked, and notes put on your back and things like that. Those are not the ways that someone wants to be noticed.
mhm.
And so it's kind of like, I would rather go unnoticed, if those are the two options. you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Something you said reminds me of a phrase, under the radar on purpose, right? And
Mhm.
beginning to read the room and see, who are the folks who, for whatever reason, and who knows what's going on in their personal life at home or work, or, especially a heart for children. And I feel like, shall we pull back the curtain for our listeners now? Because those watching this are like, when are they going to get to the obvious, right? And your brain is going through lots of different ideas. But
When are they getting to the elephant in the room? Right?
I'm just gonna let you know, if you're listening, that Bryan Lee also is Bullseye the Clown. And
Yay!
I'm gonna let your brain go ahead and think about what a clown might look like if you're not watching this. But Bullseye, will you now introduce yourself as Bullseye the Clown? Like, how do you, and again, right now you're reading the room of reintroducing yourself to me, but also to our listeners who are now going, oh, wait a second, what he's been talking about is showing up as a clown in these spaces.
Yeah, so showing up a clown, like an old clown. I mean, I never really thought that the remainder of my life would kind of go this way. I became a clown later in life. And so actually, I became a clown once my dad passed away. My
Oh,
dad passed away back in 2018. And I remembered years ago seeing a movie called Patch Adams with Robin Williams. And I love that movie. And then I remembered that Patch Adams was actually like a real person. He was a real clown who happened to be a doctor. That's the way he likes to be referred. And so I just kind of started looking at his website. And when my dad died, my dad never traveled or went anywhere. And I noticed that Patch Adams had this clown trip coming up to Russia. And of course, this was again, even though I was 47 at the time, I was still kind of in that bullied mentality where I still don't want to be noticed. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if, maybe I should do this little clown tour. No, I better not do this clown tour though. And so all these things were kind of going through my head. And so I just kind of, Patch Adams doesn't have email. So I had to write him a letter, and say, I've been thinking about doing this clown tour, but I'm not sure, because, this is the way my life was. And so he really encouraged me to do it. And So before I knew it, this my dad passed away in April. By November, I was in Russia with 35 clowns on a bus, going to orphanages and hospitals and hospices and drug rehab centers. Never having clowned a day in my life before, I had no idea what I was doing. I thought, oh, how hard could this be? Okay, I it was like a it was like a 14-day boot camp for clowns.
I
So
also love, I mean, you just dropped it there so beautifully, but that clowning, clowned, never having clowned a day in my life is suddenly a verb.
that's
Please
right.
keep going, keep going.
And so, as we were just talking about previously, going from this obscurity and nobody knowing who I was, and then Patch Adams' rule was once you leave your home, you will dress as a clown. You will be a clown from that moment on. And so we went to the airport looking like a clown. And so everywhere we went, we had costumes on. We were wearing costumes, 24 hours a day for 14 straight days. And so everywhere we went, we were noticed. In the subway, when we go out to eat, we went to the Russian ballet. They had to set us up in the balcony so we weren't that noticeable. you know, so everywhere that we went, it was just, and it got to be a lot actually.
Mhm.
We actually had the end of the first week, we had like a little therapy session, and we all came together. And so some of us who were used to being kind of obscure, we were like, this is a lot, and so he said, well, just take a day off, just don't get into costumes tomorrow. Just go shopping. And the ironic thing was, we're out there shopping, and I was with my roommate at the time who also had just lost his father.
Mm.
And so we were out shopping, and people were walking by, and I'm like waving and hello, hello. And I said, all these people are looking at us really strange. He goes, you don't have your costume on. And I'm like, oh. So
Mm.
I was still kind of now in that mentality. And it was a really interesting challenge, I guess. Um, Trying to be happy 24 hours a day when sometimes you really weren't.
Mm.
So it was kind of, it's kind of that fake it till you make it kind of thing. You just have to go out each day. And his rule was no whining, and be happy everywhere you go and make sure that somebody smiles and laughs everywhere you go. And so that kind of became our focus for 14 straight days. There were no other things. If you want to be sad, then you go back to your room and you lock yourself in and you be sad for that little bit think of time. But when you walk out that door, it's it's happy. Um,
Showtime.
yeah,
Wow, and it's so interesting too. I'm just thinking a bit of the paradox of often the happiest people. I'm a huge Patch Adams fan, by the way, like one of my favorite movies of all time and stories. And, moment of silence for Robin Williams because he portrayed him so beautifully.
he
What a
did.
gift he was, like his whole life. Speaking of wanting to make people smile, but I was thinking the paradox of your deep loss and grief, losing your father and then like feeling the calling and stepping into this role of not only embodying happiness and the invitation to help make others happy, but from a place of deep sorrow and pain or suffering, Like,
Mhm.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about what happened when you came back home. Well, like you have this incredible boot camp, you meet your mentor, and I can't believe he doesn't have an email. That's like the
I know.
coolest thing. But
Not
like
even
a
not
real
even a cell
letter.
phone. Not even a cell phone. He has to borrow somebody else's cell phone when we're on trips. So he's like, "Can I borrow your cell phone to call my wife?" I'm like, "All right, okay."
Yeah, I think like what it makes me think about, and again, what a blessing that we have Zoom and we can listen to podcasts, and probably folks are on their phones and, maybe opened an email to listen to this. But it can take us out of the present moment, of being
Mhm.
truly present in the space, that deep presence of our ancestors before all of this, right?
Mhm.
So again, what happened when you came home and suddenly everything you learned, you had this adventure, this is like the adventure paradox. You got this experience in Russia, in the Russian ballet and the day off and really mastering to some extent 14 days of working with your mentor and seeing how he moves about the world with a group, etc. But then you come home back to the place where probably you heard about your father's passing or went through all of that, the place where people knew you not as Bullseye the Clown. What happened when you came home?
Well, ironically, I really never thought I would clown again. I thought this was going to be a one and done trip. I thought, okay, I'm just going to go do this thing, and do this little adventure, and then come back home and then figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I had a job that I hated before I left, so I had quit that to deal with my father's funeral and everything. And then I thought I'll just kind of figure out what kind of a job I'm going to have. Luckily, my dad had left me just enough money to where I could take a year off, so that's what I did. I took a year off to kind of figure out what I wanted to do, but then I just kept remembering some of the things that happened on the trip that I had gone on, the adventure with Patch Adams. And I thought there's got to be more to life than what I'm living. And I'll just give you just like a really brief example. You know, I just didn't really realize what kind of an impact a clown could really have on somebody's life. And this is just like a little simple thing. We were driving on the bus. There's 35 clowns. We're driving through Russia. We come to a stoplight, and I'm looking out at a bus stop, and there's an old woman holding a bag of groceries, and she's at the bus stop with maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 people. None of those people are paying any mind to her. And so I just kind of peck on the window of the bus, and she looks up, and I start to wave. And of course, I'm dressed like a clown, you know, all dressed up. And she's kind of like, I don't know. As she just slowly starts to wave. And then I wave a little faster, and she starts to wave a little faster. And then all of the clowns on the bus saw what I was doing. And so they all turned and they all started to wave at the woman. And then about that time, the light changes. And as the bus slowly starts to pull away, I see the old woman. She sits down on a park bench and she starts to cry.
Mm.
Why she's crying, I don't have any idea. In my head, I was thinking, well, maybe that was the first time today or this week or this month that somebody actually noticed her enough to even wave and acknowledge her presence. Or maybe she was just happy that a band of clowns didn't kidnap her. I don't. But yeah, so and it was just things like that happened everywhere we went. It was just something. Um, and it was even difficult on this trip because I didn't speak Russian, and a lot of the Russians didn't speak English, and so all we had was those types of interactions where it was um, physical. It was kind of just an emotional wave. It might have been a handshake. It might have been a hug. It might have been, just trying to do a magic trick without using really words to express what it is that you were doing. And so when I came home, I thought, oh, there has got to be a way that I can do this here. And
Mhm.
so my first immediate thing was figuring out how that was possible. And so I created a little fitness program called Clown Fitness that I developed using balloons and scarves and just different kinds of things. And then I would take those into nursing homes, and I would start clowning in nursing homes, and I would schedule like little nursing home events to try to get those folks um, energized. And because a lot of times that's kind of what I feel about some nursing homes is that once you reach a certain age, they put you in a building and you're kind of
Mhm.
forgotten and you're left
Mhm.
there. And so it became a kind of like another mission of like, okay, I don't want to. And I think this stemmed too before my dad passed away. I'd never seen my dad like in a nursing home and so the last time I actually saw him alive, he was at a nursing home, and I walk in and he's all slumped over in a wheelchair at the front desk waiting for us. And I'm like, I had just never seen that. And so to me, it was just kind of all that, it was bringing all that stuff back.
Mhm.
Um, but I also noticed that once I came back from Russia, all of the angst that I had from being bullied for all the years that I was bullied, and I'd never really, really dealt with the death of my father, but all of the sadness and the grief and the angst, all that was gone.
Mm.
I had spent 14 straight days being nothing but happy. And I even tried to be depressed about, my dad passing, and be upset about the guys who bullied me in school. And all that stuff was just kind of gone. It was just kind of like my mind had this shift of, okay, that's what happened, and then that's in the past, and
Mhm.
now you're going to be leading yourself on a path of finding the happy and finding the joy in life. And that is just kind of where it started to go. It was, I mean, it wasn't like an immediate thing like, woohoo, I'm cured with everything. But at the same time, it wasn't, I stopped focusing on all of that stuff from the past. To me, that would no longer really mattered to me. And I was holding on to stuff that no longer mattered and no longer really served my greater purpose.
Wow. I again, I'm thinking about what we were just touching on and what you just said and how clowning and I love that this is a verb, and it is. I mean, clowning around, okay.
That's right. Yep.
It makes you so present. Like you can't bring all this baggage or resentments or all of that stuff. And I also love tapping into that universal language of humor, where you might not speak the same language, but you can speak this language to the brain, whatever language that brain speaks, through a visual, and really touch a person's heart. There is a stigma around clowning, though. What's that like for you? If you come upon someone who's like, I just hate clowns, had a bad experience, isn't there like some horror movie about clowns or something?
Oh, I think there is but honestly, knock on wood,
Yeah.
I have not really experienced any issues. I have never gone somewhere where anyone was afraid of me, which would
Mm,
say which is a good thing. Now,
yeah.
okay, I'll kind of take that back just a little bit. So I went on my Russian tour with Patch Adams, and then COVID hit,
Ah,
and I was planning to go on another trip with Patch to Morocco. And so that trip got pushed back and pushed back and pushed back until after COVID was over. So this was the first big trip after COVID.
mm,
And so we went to an orphanage, and there were older kids, but then there were some really, really young kids in the orphanage who went to the orphanage in the middle of COVID. So the only people they ever saw were their teachers and all of the other kids. So then 35 clowns come rushing in. and
mm,
and so they freaked out. And so
yeah.
they all went running to so we had to kind of do a little bit of damage control. So
Yeah.
that was really the only time we ever really noticed, or that I've ever noticed anybody being definitely afraid of clowns. And I guess if they are, they don't say anything to me. I've not really witnessed that. I mean, I'll go to the store if I'm in the middle of going somewhere, and I'm dressed like this. I'll go to Walmart. I don't care. I figure I look better than half the people at Walmart anyway. So I'll go pump gas. I pump gas, or I had to run into a restaurant or something. I mean, I've actually eaten in restaurants. If I'm doing like a presentation, like in a hotel or something, I'll go to like one of the hotel uh, restaurants, and I'll sit in the hotel and eat, in my costume. So,
I
um,
love it.
but yeah,
I
no,
love
I have not had anybody really, which is good. And maybe it's
mm.
just because I pretend a lot of times too that I don't look like this. So I'll just go about my business, and I'll be eating and I'll be doing stuff, and I'll pretend like I have no idea that there's anything even wrong.
Nothing's wrong. Everything's right here. I
Yeah,
mean, clearly you
so
planned for this.
yeah, but if people are looking at me, I just pretend, I don't see them. I'm just eating my little stuff and I'm going about my business. And so I just kind of, it's really kind of an ironic thing. I'm in my little invisible bubble where nobody
Mm,
can see me. I'm in my,
mm.
but at the same time, everybody can see me.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I was just thinking, I remember at one point I was doing a study on a mixed blessing, right? And so going back to when we opened and we talked about blessing someone and being a blessing, and then this story, will you just take us down to the ground level of damage control at that orphanage? 30 of you fled in, kids freak out, how did you guys go one at a time? Like what did you do to sort of bring
Well,
around
what's
that trust and blessing?
what's really interesting is, sometimes when we're away, like we didn't always do makeup. So a
Mm,
lot of us didn't have makeup on. We had the colorful costumes, and we had our clown nose. Um, but at that time, did I say, I don't think I had makeup. So sometimes maybe the clown might take the nose off, but then every clown kind of had their own persona.
mm,
And so we had women with us. And so some of the women then would just kind of maybe take their clown nose off, and then they would walk into like another room with them, and then they would just kind of hold them, or everybody kind of had their own. I was more of a playful clown, so I took toys, and so I just started playing with the older kids. And once they saw me playing with the older kids, and oh, they're just here to have fun. Well, I
yeah.
want to go out there and have fun. Why, and so we just kind of started interacting with the ones who weren't afraid of us. And then they slowly came out and started mingling in with us at that point.
Mhm.
But it was just great that every clown kind of had their own strength. We had some people who, again, each trip, there are clowns who've never clowned before. And so we always tell them, just go sit somewhere, and a child will walk up to you. They will. I did that one place. I was very exhausted after about a week of clowning in Morocco. So we got to an orphanage, and I thought, oh, I'm just really gonna just sit here. And I just say, and kids will just come up and sit on your lap, and they'll want to give you a hug, and you don't have to do anything. And I'm like, well, here
Mm,
I was doing all this playing, and I'm getting all sweaty, and I could have just sat here the whole time. so, um, so yeah, so that was kind of how the damage control kind of happened. It kind of just organically happened on its
yeah.
own.
Yeah.
Just because each clown kind of, so so the clowns are, you busy clowns, and the clowns that are crazier, you go out this way, then you
Hmm.
calmer clowns go this way, and then we
Hmm.
just kind of, we knew where to shift and where to go. And and we learned very quickly that if one clown is kind of having a moment with someone, you let them
Hmm.
alone, you let them have
Yeah.
whatever moment that they're having with that particular person, and then you just go. And if there's, all the kids are busy, and you're, a lot of times I would sit in the corner blowing bubbles and doing things by myself. And like I said, you just will slowly attract attention to yourself, and then they will come to you.
Oh, I love that so much. I know you have some books. I want to talk about the book you wrote and also the book you have coming up. But behind you, for those who can see, there is a glowing
Oh,
sign that says Clowns on a Mission. There are also a lot of really beautiful photographs of you smiling
oh
and
yeah.
making
Oh,
people
there's
smile.
Patch Adams right there. They're right there.
Ah, it's Patch.
That's myself and Patch. Yes, right there.
Is he still alive?
Oh yeah, he's actually getting ready to turn 80 this year.
Happy birthday,
Yeah,
Patch. Maybe
and
we'll
he's
get
still,
him on the podcast.
and he still does the clown trips. He still does, gosh, he probably does 5 to 7 a year.
It's so cool. And I mean, what a gift he is and what a gift you are. And this is Clowns on a Mission, your group. Will you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so after going with Patch, I've gone to with Patch to Morocco, Mexico, Costa Rica, Russia. And the one thing that I felt was kind of missing from all these clown tours, like, we would go and we would spread that love, and we would, make sure that everybody felt visible and seen, and then we left. and
Mhm.
I and I was having this desire of, wow, I wish we could leave something behind. I wish I could give them something more than just like a balloon, or a chicken, or something. And so I kind of wanted to do like a humanitarian mission where we bought, like, I don't know, clothes or shoes or
Yeah.
something. And in one of the nursing homes that I was working at, one of the ladies said, well, my niece is she's starting a church organization in Guatemala, and she's been trying to do buy backpacks for school children, because in Guatemala you either eat, the family will feed you, or they will buy you school supplies, but you usually can't afford to do both, and you can't afford to go to school if you can't buy your supplies.
Mm.
So then the more I started talking with her, we decided to get just a group of clowns. It was just 5 clowns together. We bought 200 backpacks, filled them with school supplies, and we jetted off to Guatemala. And we started handing out backpacks to like this little, very, very uh, small mountain community in Guatemala. And then while we were there, of course, she said, well, these kids, they haven't eaten. They look like they're hungry. And I'm like, oh, somebody should go buy them some food. And then I just kind of left it at that. And she kind of looking at us like, well, we're here now. And I'm like, yes, but our mission was to get backpacks. How much is food? So I was like starting to have this, panic moment of, I would love to do this, but and
Mm.
then we just started talking about, well, how much is food? And she's like, well, to buy 200 pounds of rice, it's like $100. I'm like, that's all. And so then how much is 200 pounds of corn was $50. So
Mm.
for $200, we could buy 400 pounds of food. So we bought 400 pounds of food. We went back, we bought like a little scale, and we were measuring it all out, and and everywhere we went, we started passing out food as well. And that then became our mission. So this year we just went back to Guatemala again in February, and I had a little grander mission this time. I said, I don't know how it's going to work out, but I would like to do a soup kitchen of some kind. And so we found a community, but of course the community was what they called Entre Rios, which was between rivers, which I didn't realize that meant we were going to have to drive our rented van through the river to get there. um, and so they were like, well, we can't really take soup because soup is not going to travel well. And I said, well, we can just, I said, why won't it travel well? Well, we gotta drive through the river. Oh, so, so we ended up having our local pastor. He um, prepared fried chicken and macaroni salad and tortillas, and we had like an horchata drink. And so
Mm.
we transported all of that, and we fed a community of 200.
Awesome.
And so we kind of went out, and then we still, of course, made the food bags and handed out food. This time they were a little bit bigger food bags. We went to like their version of Costco, which I think was called Suma, and we
Mm.
bought about 10 to 11 carts filled with food, and then we came back home and we bagged those all up at our little base camp, and then we started handing those out as well.
Wow. I'm just so touched by this clowning culture and like really coming around to touching on I believe humor is essential, especially in those really dark moments. I've some of my best laughs have actually been at funeral gatherings where because there's this tension, and then you remember I remember my grandfather just telling this like really raunchy joke. Right, as my younger cousin was basically saying that jokes are a thing of the past, and that humor has changed. But if we don't have those essential needs met, so just what a gift that is. And I know you have some books, and I want people to hear about the book you already have published and the one you have coming. I know how much work it takes to write a book.
Yeah.
So
So, well,
tell us, yeah.
the first one was just, it was really a short book, and it was meant to be a short book. It's called Bullseye on Bullying. So it
Mm,
does talk about, like, how I navigated bullies myself, you know, um, and so it's probably just it's a short little 80 page. It was just really designed for anybody who was in the middle of a bullying situation or domestic violence situation. I mean, I even have
mm,
a little chapter in there on how to not get bullied in nursing homes and things like that, because I had been going to nursing homes and still seeing that there was, you're never exempt from that.
yeah.
Um, and so that one is currently available on Amazon. The new book I'm working on kind of talks a lot about clowns on a mission, and it's called Be the Someone. So
Mm,
as I was just mentioning how we were there, we were planning, we were handing out backpacks in Guatemala, and she was like, they need food. And I'm like, great, somebody should go get them some food. And she's like, well, we're here now. Why can't we be the someones who are going to get them the food while we're here? And I'm like, well, you got a point. And so that's kind of what this book is about, is how to see a need that arises. And even though you don't exactly know how
mm,
you're going to fill that need, you're the one that immediately sees the need. We can't wait. And we're the way the world is today, it's so chaotic. We can't wait and expect that somebody else is going to come and save the day. So we
yeah.
need to be the ones to step up when we see that a need is happening. I mean, maybe the need, or maybe what all we can do is write a letter. So if that's
Mm,
all we can do, then let's write the letter to whoever we need to get that letter to, and see if we can't get the ball rolling. But um, it's time to kind of stop sitting by and being part of the world that watches, when we actually need to be some of those people who kind of become initiators and go out there and try to initiate to get, food where it needs to go, or to help the seals who are, dying in California, or whatever it happens to be, wherever you know, we can't all, and of course, and it has to be something that's passionate to you. I mean, if there's something that you're really passionate about, like, wow, somebody should really do something about education, or somebody should really do something about the homeless, or whatever it happens to be. Okay,
mm,
well, let's figure out how that can be you. let's
totally.
let's figure out what you can do today. And so that's what the second book that I'm working on now, and I'm hoping to have out in the next few months. That's the focus of this book, and it talks a lot about what we've done in Guatemala, and what we've been doing just here locally. And then I've been talking to other people who have kind of had these same things of, you know, digging wells in, Africa, where it's like, okay, I had $600 and I wanted to go dig a
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so it's just kind of, how do you get the resources if you don't have them? And, I think we have this idea that we have to be qualified to do something. I'm a clown, for heaven's sake. I don't know anything about feeding a nation.
Yeah,
I was like, okay, well, clowns are supposed to know magic. Okay, I got to figure out a way to pull food out of this bag and
totally. Yeah,
and get something done. So let's figure this out.
totally. Well,
You
and I
know,
love that story of, you talking to that woman and her saying, they're hungry and they need food, and you being like, yeah, okay, yeah. And then really being able to meet this person where they are and be present to the need that they've expressed and the desire, and to meet that need, isn't there a saying, God qualifies the called, right?
yep.
And your book title, Be the Someone, makes me think of Gandhi, who said, be the change you want to see in the world, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. The full title of the book is called "Be the Someone." take action in a world that waits.
Ooh, good. Mic
Yeah.
drop that one, baby.
Yeah.
Well, I can't believe we've been chatting for almost 40 minutes, and I would love to leave with a joke. Will you bless us with a joke?
Oh my, I gotta come up with a joke. I've actually have like a joke per se. Let me think. Let me think. Now you put me on the spot. I just try to be funny naturally. Let me think of one.
It's okay. I have a few here if you want
Okay,
me to run some while
you
you
shoot
think
if
of them.
if one pops into my mind that's
Sure,
actually like
sure, sure. And no worries if not. But we've been playing with jokes. I've been using this joke book for our younger audience, but awesome jokes that every 6-year-old should know. Thank you, Matt. Wow. And I opened up a few just to leave our listeners with a little humor you could share with any age. Why did the banana go to the hospital? Because he wasn't peeling well.
oh
What game do baby ghosts like to play? Hide and shriek.
oh I was gonna say peekaboo.
I know, peekaboo would work too. And what is a duck's favorite snack?
Crackers.
Crackers. You got that one. Love it, Bullseye.
I'm smarter than
Well,
I thought.
thank you, Bullseye. Thank you, Brian, so much for your time and for blessing us with your wisdom and humor.
I've got one quick joke.
Bring it.
What's the difference between a hippo and a zippo? One is quite heavy, the other's a little lighter.
You got me. That was good. One's a little lighter. Well, folks, I hope that this interview left you a little lighter with a few jokes in your pocket to go share with someone else. Because remember, laughter is the closest distance between two people. And you can use this with your children. You can use it with the sad person you see on a park bench. And just be present to being the blessing in this life. Thank you so much for listening. Have a beautiful day. We'll
Thank
see you
you.
next time.